Hey guys, so in this video we will discuss risk management once again, sort of a continuation of the first two videos where we discussed in detail and we even showed you several examples using a simulator that how win ratio by itself means nothing. It has to be coupled with proper risk to reward, else you're not going to see profits at the end of the month. So in this video we will be focusing a little bit more on the specifics. We will probably even take a look at an example over here, and which I will show you guys, which will determine what type of leverage to use, what type of position size to use, how to put your stop loss and exits, and how to decide between two levels, right? So within a range, if we have two levels, how do you decide? Now, yes, the greedier the better, but that's not necessarily always the case if your stop loss is too far away from your exit target, because it will mess with the risk reward, right? So an example of that would be, for instance, let's say if we focus on this range over here first, right? So we figured out that probably this is our this is pretty decent for stop loss right below the leg, right? You have to know how to identify the legs properly. I see a lot of my students not marking the legs properly, right? There's constant confusion about that. I've yet to make a video on that, but that's something that I've included in the mentorship program already as to how to define ranges and legs properly. Okay, now let's take a look at these two examples over here. So using this tool over here, every single trade that you should take, it should be based on what type of risk reward that you're expecting out of it, right? You should go into the trade with a proper game plan, right? Depending on the scenario that it unfolds, you should have already plan that if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And in leverage trade, obviously we always want to have stop loss. Regardless, you should have a stop loss, whether it's a leverage trade or a spot trade. But for a leverage, it's a must because of the liquidation factor and whatnot, right? So let's say if I'm taking this trade, the first level, and because we always go by probabilities on these levels, right? No matter how good our TA is, we will have losing trades, correct? We can minimize our losses by being patient on the levels, not forcing the trades, but we're not going to be 100% right. We're humans. We will make errors at times. We might miss some information on the charts, and even if we have done everything correct, there are some fundamental factors out there, such as the FOMC meetings and whatnot, which sometimes do have an effect on the market. So we always have to be prepared, right? In the worst case scenario, if I get stopped out, how much am I going to be what type of hit am I looking at taking on my overall account, right? So let's say if the first level is the one that I'm willing to take and the stop loss is over here. Now in terms of risk reward, obviously this doesn't make sense, right? Now if my TA tells me that I should let this go to this level, in that case, yes, it does make sense. It's 1.85, right? So the minimum, as you guys might remember from the previous videos, we should be looking at 1.0, right? So for every dollar I'm risking, I'm looking to gain $1, right? But ideally we should be looking at higher risk to reward if we want to, or if we're not able to pull off the win ratio about 50%. In that case, we have to have a higher risk to reward, which means be pickier on the trades, right? So if I'm looking to take this trade and I think it's going to go up over there, then that's good. Which means that if it hasn't gotten up over there, if that's a decision that you made based on your TA, not arbitrarily just saying, oh, I'm going to let it go to this spot. No, you should do all of your TA, all of your work, and if you've decided based on all that information that I should let it go up over here, well, I would recommend not taking profits any earlier than this. Okay, because if you do this for long enough, you will blow through your account. Okay, because one of those trades, if you have a losing streak, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades in a row where your stop loss gets hit, where the exit targets were not big enough, by the way you get back to where you were, those several trades back, it's going to take you twice, 3 times, probably even 4 times as long, right? So that's why I want you guys to focus on these videos to understand that it's not just TA, it's proper risk management. That's how, even with like an average TA, you should be able to see profits at the end of the month if you're being smart about how you manage these trades, right? So if this is the trade you're taking, this is where you're looking to exit, don't exit before that, even if that means you have to let it go and it hits your stop loss, right? As I always keep saying, that it's better for you to let it go and hit your stop loss than taking earlier exits. Okay, so this definitely does not make sense to take exit over here, right? It should be minimum, you should be looking at probably exiting somewhere around here, 1.01. Right, but if this is what you have decided, then stick to your game plan. Okay, don't panic in the middle of the trade. Walk away if you have to. If you're using a bot, put your stop loss entries and whatnot, and just walk away if you have to. Right, now if let's say my TA is telling me that, hey, it could have a possible failure over here, right? It has broken through this range, and there's a very last range, right? So yes, it does seem like a very good trade, but let's say for whatever reason you think, oh, it actually has been blowing through all of these ranges and it's been laddering down, and it hit a very nasty resistance at the top, and you expect this to go much lower. In that case, what you should do is skip the first level, go with the second level, right? Go with the second level, and in that case, if you end up taking an exit profit over here, it's perfectly fine, right? Because it's giving you 1.69, right? And if it happens to go up to this guy, if you let it go to this guy, even better, 3.69, right? But the minimum, the bare minimum you're looking at is, let's say, deciding that you're exiting over here if you see it having a difficulty going above this level. So the greedier level over here gives you more opportunities, right? Because not too far away from stop loss. Additionally, you can use a higher leverage. However, I see a lot of people just randomly selecting 50x, 100x, and they just dive into trades. That's not how leverage should be calculated, right? I have a leverage calculator that I'll show you guys in a second, and you can use that, and based on your account size and the overall position size that you're willing to bet on there, right? It will give you the contracts that you need to use. Don't focus on leverage. It's all about contracts, how many contracts you're buying, right? And that determines what type of leverage you should be using. So you don't even need to worry about the leverage, right? And I'll give you an example of that in 1 second. Let me complete this example over here, or this other example that I want to show you guys. So for instance, this is another trade, right? And that's greedier. Now, what I don't like about that trade is that it's a little bit too far away from the leg. If this is the leg and I don't want to risk getting stopped out in the liquidity zone because maybe there's an origin or a base over here. I like the concept of bases a lot more, as you guys know from one of my previous videos. So let's say if you decided to probably take this trade, what the heck is going on? Yeah, okay. So if you actually decided to put, wait, what am I doing wrong over here? I'd rather just erase this and draw this again. Okay, so if I'm willing to take this entry over here with stop loss over here, correct? And the target, the first target is right here. Now you see it's not even giving me like 1.0, 1 ratio 1, right? So this is probably a trade that I might want to avoid altogether, even though it has a good chance of probably bouncing, because it's the very last hold level before this thing could collapse, right? And aka polarity, right? So I like to have I like to let the TA dictate what type of position size I should be taking, and whether or not I should take the greedier level, because as I said, it's all intertwined, right, with the risk management. If the TA is telling me that, hey, this could definitely have a bounce, but as I said, I'm always looking at the worst case scenario if I get stopped out, and if I do this for long enough, if I do this another couple of trades, my losing streak will make it very hard for me to get back to where I was. So I might want to probably let this trade go altogether if I think that this could have a rejection over here, right? And that, again, TA helps, but the ultimate decision should be based on your risk to reward, and hence you should also then decide on your position size, right? If you are willing to take this, maybe you might want to risk only 1%, right, instead of your normal 2% or 3%. And again, you should never be using a fixed portion or position size, which is point number 3, right? So we already discussed these two things, and point number 3 is what type of position size you should use. Well, look at the type of level you're taking. If you think it's backed by a nice trend, if it's a good enough range, right, a big enough time frame range that you're taking, and greedy enough as well, you might want to increase your position size to probably 3% in some cases, right? 2.5%, 2%. But if you think that the chance of failure of a level is probably too big, and in terms of risk reward it's really good, decrease your position size, and you might be able to buy more contracts, i.e. bigger leverage, right? So probably try something like that. Now, what type of leverage to use? Let's get back to that, right? So this is a calculator that Ma was kind enough to help me create back in the day. And what I like about this calculator is that you can punch in all of the values in here, your total account size and max loss percentage that you're willing to endure in case a stop loss gets triggered. So put your entry, target, stop loss, right? It gives you a risk to reward, right? And it tells you exact value in US dollars that you'll be risking in case your stop loss gets triggered, right? And what profit you could be walking away with if your target price gets hit. Okay, now this calculator we made back in the day was for Finandi, so you can ignore this part, just punch in all these values in here. I will put this link in one of the channels, right? Or if you guys are using manual calculators, you could do that too, or any of the other websites that you guys know of. There are plenty of them out there. What I like about this site is it actually calculates the number of contracts for you. A lot of websites, they don't do that, right? They give you all these other values, but they don't give you the exact number of contracts. And by the way, guys, you should not be calculating random or you should not be taking trades with random arbitrary leverage, right? That, oh, I'm going to do this with 100x or 50x. No. Punch in all these values based on your TA and whether or not it makes sense in terms of risk reward. This definitely wouldn't make sense because 0.63, we want it to be minimum 1.0. Higher, better, right? It gives you more leeway with the errors that you can make. You can have a lower win ratio, right? But if your risk reward is high enough, obviously over time you'll be profitable. So let's say if the second entry that we spoke about right here was the other scenario that we were talking about. Oops, wait. If we're gonna go with this second entry right here, right? So 401, 402, and I'm gonna be conservative with my first target being 524. Okay. So if I'm gonna do with 524, and this is where my stop loss is, right below the leg, right? In this case, worst case scenario, I walk away with 200 less dollars in my account, right? So it'll be 9,900 or sorry, 9,800, right? Best case scenario, I walk away with this profit. So you see how it calculated the leverage for me automatically. I don't have to be worried about this. What matters is contracts. Leverage means nothing, right? Leverage is automatically calculated based on the number of contracts that you're buying with the amount that you're willing to risk, right? Which is this. So use this calculator. It's very beneficial. Use proper risk management, and then please do let me know if there are any questions. I will do one more for you guys before leaving. So let's say if we are doing this, and that there's a scenario that we're looking at, right? But what if we actually use scenario number 2, which is right here? What type of contract size are we going to be looking at, right? So based on these values, so 18219, 18351, 18219. Right, or let's put it as 220 round figure, and 18, what is that, 350 was it? Oops, 351, 350, and stop loss 18080, right? So 18080. Do you see like how the leverage over here is automatically calculated for me? So this is basically what you should be doing. So getting back to what we're talking about over here. For instance, let's say if you have if your entry is really close to the leg over here. So let's put these values in here. There's no level necessarily over here, but I'm just saying if it happens to be over here, right? In that case, 18143 is our entry. So 18143. Do you see like how you're able to pull this off with a bigger leverage? I'm not putting the leverage myself, right? I'm just putting in all these values, and it will increase the number of contracts for me automatically, right? And yeah, so ignore this copy part if you're not using the Finandi bot. And yeah, good luck with your trades, and hopefully see you guys in the next lesson.